Hi there. Hello. Welcome to the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for joining us today. This week is going to be a little different as the international break for the EFL is on this next couple of weeks. So we will not be covering as much EFL action because of that, but we will be covering some more of the League One, League Two action as that is still somewhat going on because not as many of those players are being called up for international duty on the pitch side. Meanwhile, on the grid side, we will be covering the week 6 slate of games that are coming up starting tomorrow on Thursday. So let's go pitch side first. Um, The only game that really is standing out this week is in League Two. It's Notts County versus Chesterfield. Chesterfield is 12th in the league right now, sitting at 14 points. Notts County is at 18th, and both of these teams need some results. Chesterfield has dropped points in two out of the last three matches. Well, no, actually, more than that. Chesterfield has actually dropped only won one of the last five, and Notts County has dropped points in two of the last three. I switched them up. So yeah, it's a very intriguing matchup because both need a win, and yeah, uh, it's fascinating because Chesterfield has a goal differential of 7 plus 7, and Notts County has a goal differential of +8. You don't often see lower mid-table teams always having such a healthy goal differential. So that feels a little weird. But yeah, Notts County started off hot and they've just kind of crested a little bit now that Walsall's kind of come into the picture. They are 1 point off the top of the table, let's be clear though. There are four teams atop of the top of the league at 19 points. Walsall, Gillingham, Barrow, and Doncaster Rovers. So it's not exactly like Notts County is far off the top of the table. They are only off by 1 point. And yeah, actually, if they were tied right now, they actually would be top of the table. So this is not exactly a team that's far off in terms of promotion slots. So you would expect this to be a very close game. Actually, Chesterfield and Notts County have the same amount of goals scored, and actually, only Chesterfield has only allowed one more goal than Notts County, so they're very even statistically speaking. Um, Chesterfield's leading scorer only has 5 goals. Um, that leading scorer is James Barry. He's played all 10 matches and has scored 5 goals. Um, with Will Grigg right behind him at 3 goals. Their top assister is Tom Naylor at 3 assists. And yeah, so this is a very uh, top heavy team in terms of goal scoring. Um, they seem to be a very yellow card happy team. Um, yeah, they've gotten a lot of yellow cards. The most most fouls is 4 yellows for Tom Naylor, and Darren Oldacher has 1 yellow and 1 red. So this is a very brash seemingly team, very physical. I'm assuming based on those stats. Notts County, meanwhile, coming into this game, very even distribution of the goal scoring as they have 3 guys tied for top scorer on the team with David McGodrick and Jody Jones and Alessana Jata, all at 4 goals. And they have people who are also very willing to assist. It looks like Daniel Crowley and Jody Jones have 3 assists. So Jody is very busy. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists. That's pretty cool. A very active player he seems to be. And it seems like also, I mean, they've got they seem to be a lot more disciplined than Chesterfield, with a grand total of, yeah, about 14 yellow cards total. No reds at all on this squad. So it's a very, very disciplined team. It looks like they do not take many risks either. So I would assume this should be a tight game, probably, um, with not much between the two. But also, I mean, you would think Notts County would win, just because of how good they've been and how close to the top of the table they are. But you never ever know in the EFL. So yeah, that's the main attraction of the week in terms of League One, League Two action. Um, and yeah, so let's head grid side now for the Week 6 matchups. We'll start off with the Thursday night matchup. And that is 49ers and Seahawks. 49ers come off a very close loss to the Arizona Cardinals. It was tightly contested. Um, the Cardinals just took momentum late in that game and never let go. They were down 10 and came back and won the game on a last couple minute field goal. And Brock Purdy got hit and was picked off. And yeah, they've now lost two divisional games, one to the Rams and one to the Cardinals now, both having 10-point leads in both of those games and relinquishing them. Meanwhile, the Seahawks are coming off a weird loss. They lost to the Giants on a kick six. They lost to the Giants on a kick six, and they the Seahawks have a problem on the offensive and defensive lines. They can't seem to get anything together on either side of those trenches, and that's a problem, obviously. So they come into this game with needing to win. They want to stay, of course, ahead of Arizona, who's second in the division. Um, and San Francisco needs a win just to stay in the race and not drop further back of the division leaders in terms of games and also the division record as well. We did learn today that Hufanga, very hard to pronounce as you can tell, um, he did go onto IR for a wrist, so he will be out for 4 games. That's huge. He's a big part of what the Niners like to do on defense. They are a very injured team, to say the least. They do not have Christian McCaffrey, um, but his slack has been picked up very well on by the uh, emergence of Jordan Mason, who has picked up the slack and is actually one of the league leaders in rushing yards after contact, and is very um, he's been suitable enough replacement to get the Niners to what they need, even though he is not McCaffrey, obviously, and he's been good enough to get the rush yards. It's just been a kind of a down year for Brock Purdy, to be honest. Purdy has 1,374 passing yards with 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. That's usually not his standard. But I mean, someone I guess would attribute it to lots of injuries, especially on the offensive and the defensive lines. Um, Offensive line, especially, and people being able to get pressure on Purdy. The Cardinals didn't do a lot of that until the last play of the game, and yeah, Jordan Mason, by the way, has 536 yards on 105 carries. So it's not like he's being super efficient with his carries, but he is getting a lot of yards, and he is contributing 3 touchdowns to that total. Um, Meanwhile, on the Seahawks side, Geno Smith is kind of similar to Purdy, actually. He's got 1,466 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. Kenneth Walker, of course, is one of the main attractions of the Seattle offense. He's got 37 carries for 202 yards, 4 touchdowns. Was limited earlier in the season with some injuries that he's come back from, and it started to look like the same old Kenneth Walker. which is good for the Seahawks because that's kind of what their offense runs around is the run game and then the play action. So hope whoever wants to win this game wants to win the ground game, clearly. And because both love the ground game and it opens up a lot of what they do. Obviously the Niners have the more flashy star names in Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa on the defensive side, Fred Warner on the defensive side as well. Um, I do think what's hurting the Niners some is the absence of Dre Greenlaw. He is a huge enforcer for them in the terms of stopping the run. He's also very good in coverage. Um, but yeah, I think the Niners. This should be a good game because both have weaknesses on both sides of the ball. Um, and we saw a couple weeks ago Seattle can put up points against good defenses. They were able to keep almost toe to toe with Detroit. They just couldn't keep up enough. I would think they would be able to do so more this against the Niners defense that is not as healthy as it would normally be, as potent as it normally would be. Um, yeah, so the X factor for both teams is the run game and the offensive line. I would say San Francisco might win, but this should be a very good game. Hopefully for Thursday night, and we can have back-to-back good Thursday night games. You just never know in these division games. It could be a blowout or it could be an insanely tight game. Division games are so unpredictable. Yeah. So let's move on to the London game. Um, so yeah, it's Bears and Jaguars. Um, Jacksonville might not even make it out of the airport. Let's be honest, because of the hurricane coming in. So who knows if that's gonna even happen? But right now we are there's no one saying it's going to be canceled or anything. The Bears are 3-2. They had a great showing against the Panthers on Sunday. Played very well. The run game got going and was productive. The passing game was fluid. DJ Moore had a great game. Caleb Williams had a great game. Um, and it was probably the best game the Bears have played overall. Granted, it was the Panthers who have shown signs of improvement the last couple of weeks, but still are not a great team. Speaking of not great teams, the Jaguars are not a great team. They're 1-4. They got their first win of the year last week in what is now their their one gimme win of the year, apparently in Jacksonville against Indianapolis. Flacco tried his hardest to break that curse, but he just couldn't do enough, and the Jags pulled off the win, 37-34. Otherwise, they have not looked great. They did look better against the Texans a couple weeks ago. They just couldn't do enough. And yeah, that kind of sums up the Jags season. They've hung in some games, but then they just fall apart at the critical moments. Um, it is in Chicago, it is in London actually. Chicago is the home team for this game. Um, Lawrence has not doesn't have awful stats actually. If you look at him, he's got 1,100 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. It seems you would think he takes care of the ball rather well overall. Surprisingly, actually, I'm kind of shocked just looking at these stats that he's you know not uh, thrown more picks, being how bad um, the Jags have been. He has taken 12 sacks, though. That is a lot. I mean, through 5 games, that's not terrible, though. I mean, but it still shows there are some cracks here. Tank Bigsby is the Jags' leading rusher. When Travis Etienne is supposed to be the leading rusher, that's why they drafted Etienne to be the companion to Lawrence, being the Clemson duo in the backfield. Um, And Brian Thomas, of course, is the rookie who has had a great start to his rookie year. He's 22 receptions, 397 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's shown some flashes, and he's shown he can be a pretty good player. It's just he's on a bad team. And of course, there's calls for Doug Peterson to be fired. So this is a huge game for not only the Jaguars in total, but Doug Peterson himself. Meanwhile, the Bears, Caleb Williams, like I said, he had a pretty good game last week. He's got 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, with 1,091 yards passing. Um, and DeAndre Swift, of course, is their leading rusher with 234 yards on 74 carries for 2 touchdowns. And DJ Moore, he had himself a great game. He's their leading receiver. I think Keenan Allen is back, I think, which is kind of weird considering, you would think Keenan Allen would be their leading receiver, but that might take a bit considering he just came back not long ago from injury. Um, a huge blow to the Jags defense is going to be that they lost Tyson Campbell to IR. He's huge to what they do on defense. He's one of their best players. Um, and they did put Devin Duvernay also on IR, which is rough. Yeah, it's not looking good for the Jags. I would think the Bears should win this. They've got a decent defense that could probably stifle the Jags enough times to give Caleb a chance to win, and the Jags defense isn't all that stellar either. So, especially without Tyson Campbell, I would think the Bears should win this game. Some notes: the Patriots did name Drake May their, I think it was third overall pick, the starter for this game that they're playing this week against the Texans. It's in Foxborough. The problem is the Patriots have nothing to speak of in terms of offensive line. Um, and guess who's one of the best teams at generating pressure on the quarterback? It's the Houston Texans. The Texans came off a great win against Buffalo. They looked pretty good. They let Buffalo get back into the game, but Buffalo gave them a possession after just throwing it 3 times, stopping the clock and giving the Texans a chance to win and kick the game-winning field goal. Meanwhile, the Patriots just came off a bad loss to the Dolphins, 15-10. Uh, yeah, the Tyler Huntley led Dolphins. Tua is still on IR for them. Um, but yeah, New England is out of sorts. They named May the starter. Brissett has been the quarterback, but he's been nothing special. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, only 696 yards passing. Obviously, New England loves the run game. Ramondre Stevenson is hurt, but he's their leading rusher still at 356 yards off 77 carries, and 3 touchdowns. The Texans, obviously, one of the better teams in the AFC. They are 4-1. CJ Stroud, 1,385 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. Um, yeah, it was a great win to bounce back off of the loss the other week to the Vikings a couple weeks ago. They've rebounded nicely off of that loss to the Vikings. And the Texans, they did put Nico Collins on IR off the hamstring issue he suffered last week against the Bills. So that's a huge blow, but that's exactly why you get Stephon Diggs in free agency. He will be missed. Nico Collins will, but Stephon Diggs is going to probably have a much bigger role in this passing game now. We don't know if Joe Mixon's going to be available. He's been a stud for them. Um, in terms of production, it doesn't feel like a lot, honestly, though that is partly because he's only played like a game and a half. Um, because ever since he got hurt in Chicago, against Chicago, I should say, he has not played. Um, we don't know if Jimmy Ward's going to play. I would assume most of these people who are questionable, the Texans are going to play. Um, we don't know if Mixon will be though. Patriots, they are pretty banged up, but this should be a win for the Texans. They're great at rushing the quarterback with Will Anderson uh, and their pass rush is just amazing. You just it's it's one of the better defenses in the league. They have Al Shire, who is a great linebacker, who is very underrated at the Titans. By the way, Will Anderson Jr. He's one of their better pass rushers. He's got 2.5 sacks. They've got Mario Edwards, who's got 2 sacks. They've got uh, Barnett, who's got 2 sacks. This is a guy that this is a team that is very even keeled when it rushes the passer. It is very deadly. So I would expect the Texans to just thrive in this situation, and especially against a rookie quarterback who did show flashes in preseason, but this is his first real action against a pretty good Texans team. I wouldn't expect much. And we go from that to a pretty good game, I would think. I'm kind of excited for this one. It's the Commanders and Ravens. Commanders came off a good win against a pretty bad Browns team. They dominated from start to finish, never looked back. Jane Daniels is in God mode ever since the Bengals game, where he showed out. And the Ravens came off the crazy, wacky game against the Bengals, where they Lamar also went God mode, um, including a stiff arm touchdown. Yeah, it's this could be a fun game. I think what we learned about the Ravens is the defense is not 20 the 2000s defense of the Ravens. They've got good talent. They just don't um they haven't gelled yet. You don't want to see this Ravens defense when they do gel. But right now they have not, and it could be something that Jane Daniels could easily exploit. With a guy like Terry McLaurin, who has become a pretty deep threat. He's got 23 catches, 303 yards, 2 touchdowns. Daniels isn't exactly statistically lighting it up. He's got 1,155 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Um, and with a QBR of 73.2. He is completing 77.1% of his passes, which is insane. Shows he's very accurate when it comes to throwing the ball. Um, yeah, I that's pretty good, I would say. Um, he has a long of 66 too in the regular season. Yeah, he started out great. He humiliated the Cardinals after the Bengals game, and then now the Browns game. They Brian Anderson is probably going to be back. Brian Robinson is probably going to be back. Um, you would think for the Commanders as well. Of course, Lamar throwing up MVP numbers for a 3-2 squad with 9 touchdowns and a pick off of 1,206 yards passing. That's MVP numbers type crap. And then Derrick Henry, he's got 572 yards off of 95 carries and 6 touchdowns. Yeah, he's doing pretty good, I would say. Zay Flowers, he is their deep threat for the Ravens. The very speedy receiver. Only got 1 touchdown on 269 yards and 24 catches. So yeah, but of course the Ravens' main offensive weapon is the tight end. Um, yeah, I think this could be a very even matchup. Lots of points, you could say, probably. Commanders do not have an incredible defense on their side either. Um, yeah, this could be a fun game, and I think it's going to be the game of the week, probably. Um, if not close, because I could see this going either way. Um, and this is a test for Jane Daniels, his second big test after a couple of easy games against teams like Arizona and um, Cleveland. Even though Arizona is showing they aren't a pushover per se, but yeah, that I'm really looking forward to that game. Browns Eagles. I want to quickly go over. Eagles should win this easily. Cleveland has been an awful team Like I said, they lost to the Commanders. Philly was on a bye last week, so they've gotten healthier. You would think. There's a lot of discussion around Philly whether or not they the coach needs to be gone. Sirianni hasn't exactly impressed. The Eagles not exactly impressed as a contender themselves. Hurts is 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, so he's decent this year. He's not, the sparkling passer. This Eagles team lives and dies off Saquon Barkley. Um, he is 73 carries, 435 yards, and 4 touchdowns. As he goes, the Eagles go on offense, to be quite honest. And their leading receiver is a tight end with 301 yards and no touchdowns. And to be fair, a lot of this has to do with um, the fact that A.J. Brown has been out a lot, as has Devontae Smith with a concussion. So that doesn't help. But yeah, the Eagles should be better than this. Um, you would think at least. So yeah, the Eagles should win this quite easily. Browns are not great. Deshaun Watson's been awful. He's 5 touchdowns, 3 picks on 852 yards passing. That's crazy. And Jerry Jeudy's their leading receiver with 213 yards and a touchdown. And you have Amari Cooper on your team. And the Browns defense has not been great at all this year. They've completely capitulated. They are not the defense of last year. So yeah, moving on, we have the Cardinals and Packers. Um, this could be a very intriguing matchup. I'm kind of intrigued by it. The um, Cardinals, of course, came off their win against the Niners last week, and they didn't look good early, but they came back and were gritty. They were tough. You see the kind of culture that Jonathan Gann wants to get in that locker room, and it shows. Um, that Call of Duty sponsorship obviously doing something for Kyler because he's playing pretty well actually, considering all circumstances. And they're facing a very opportunistic Packers offense, a defense, I should say, and led by Xavier McKinney, who's had a pick in 5 straight games. Insane. Um, and that defense is huge and has been a big part of why the Packers have won some games lately, including the one against the Rams last week. They got by with the win, and yeah, they looked pretty good for most of it. The Rams made a late surge, but couldn't close it in the last couple minutes. It was just too little, too late for the Rams against the Packers, and the Packers defense, like I said, is pretty solid. Um, the Cardinals did lose Will Hernandez to IR yesterday, I think it was, and that's rough. Um, yeah, that'll hurt because Arizona loves the run game. It'll be very interesting to see how James Conner and Kyler Murray can do against a pretty stout Packers front line. And Kyler has been much better throwing the rock. He's only got 972 yards passing, but he's thrown 7 touchdowns and only 2 picks. So he's improved his efficiency a lot. You would seem he only has a 66.4 completion percentage, but that's not awful for him speaking. He's going up against Jordan Love, who just came back a couple of weeks ago off of his injury against Philly in the Brazil game. He's got 8 touchdowns, 5 picks. He does have a pretty low QBR for 46.1 with a 56.1 completion percentage. Uh, actually, no. Kyler has a 66.4 QBR, 68.1 completion percentage. My bad. Um, yeah, Josh Jacobs has started to come out a little bit of his shell. He's got 402 yards and a touchdown. And I think this very much comes down to how much ground will the Packers let the Cardinals have in the run game. Because if not, this could be an ugly game. Or I could see this being a good game, though. I really could. The Cardinals have been showing grit and toughness this season. They kept it close against the Bills. They've you know, not exactly looked pretty. They kept it close against the Lions, who were pretty good. They did get blown out by the Commanders. That was a sneaky one, but they blew out the Rams. They've been up and down, inconsistent, but at the same time, they've shown a lot more promise than they had 2 years ago, and you can tell Jonathan Gannon's really trying to build something here, and it's impressive, to say the least. I think this could be a sneaky good game. I don't. The Packers should win the game. They have a much better defense, and are healthier than the Niners were. So I would think the -5 reflects that. Green Bay is at home. I I would think the Packers should win this. If the Cardinals do pull off the upset, though, I would not be shocked either. Bucks Saints is a good one as well. Um, Going into this, the Bucks just lost the heartbreaker to the Falcons last Thursday night. Really good game. Baker has been very efficient. 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1,164 yards passing. They will be taking on a Saints team that has lost 3 straight after starting 2-0. And the Saints got even worse news, finding out that Derek Carr tore his oblique, and he will be out several weeks. There are some people saying it's only a couple of weeks. Others are saying several, probably more than two. They did name the starting quarterback today. It will be Spencer Rattler, the rookie out of South Carolina, starting for the Saints. And I I don't know what to think. He showed up in bits and spurts in the preseason. Um, but yeah, I think this this could be a good game. This is a game that both these teams need. Bucks want to win to stay alive with a division race against the Falcons. The Saints really need this win to just gain any kind of confidence back. Saints fans are calling for Dennis Allen's head a little bit. There's chatters and murmurs of it. Alvin Kamara has been a big part of the Saints offense too. The 4 of his touchdowns of the 5 he's scored came against the Cowboys in week 2. He has 91 carries, 388 yards, but he is a running back that can absolutely turn it on. And the Bucks, they've been turning actually to a running back duo of Bucky Irving and Rashad White, and it's kind of worked. Bucky Irving had a couple of costly fumbles, one against the Falcons that just almost did them in. I would think almost did them in. I think they went 3-0 on that one, but then the face mask, I think that was the blown face mask call, I think, against the Falcons. But um, in the end, yeah, Bucky Irving probably needs to keep the ball better. But I think could be. It's a division game, so always those are always fun, unpredictable. Saints are at home. Um, Bucks do have a healthier offense. This could be a close game, but the Saints are also hurt a lot on defense. 3 of their 4 linebackers are out last week against the Chiefs. They did put Kendre Miller, the running back out of TCU. I think it's his second year. They did designate him to return off IR, so he's got like I think 3 weeks to return fully to the field. But yeah, I can see the Bucks winning this game. I could see the Saints winning it too, in a weird way. Um, the defense kept them in the game for the most part. Chiefs dominated the Saints for the most part in terms of rushing time of possession, but they kept them out of the end zone a lot of the time. So they have a chance. It's just going to be hard to keep up. If Spencer Rattler does well, this could be a fun game. Um, but you never know with a rookie quarterback starting his first game. It could be very interesting. I would think the Bucks could win, but I would love it if Spencer Rattler pulls something off and makes it a good game. Um, yeah, so that's going to be kind of interesting. Colts Titans. I wanted to kind of look over this briefly. Colts are coming off um, a loss in Jacksonville that they should have won. They have not won in Jacksonville, by the way, in a decade. Like what? How? Um, After 2 straight wins over the Bears and Steelers, where it looked like they were starting to find some pace with Flacco. Flacco shows he can put up good numbers with them. Uh, Anthony Richardson, I don't know if he's going to be playing this game or not. Titans came off a bye week that they needed after the win over the Dolphins. Both of these teams are heavily injured. I have no idea who would win this game. Michael Pittman. Oh, by the way, Michael Pittman. Rep for him. He's on IR with a shoulder, I believe it is, and he will not play in this game, and that hurts the Colts a lot. They do have. I think they will have Taylor and Downs, so that's good news for the running game because Jonathan Taylor, obviously, even if he's not his best year, he's still one of the best in the game. Um, in terms of running backs, Tony Pollard for the Titans is their main attraction in the running game. They obviously have Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd as receivers, along with, of course, Nuke himself, DeAndre Hopkins. Um, just Will Levis has been the detriment of the Titans a lot of the time, and he's got 4 touchdowns, 6 picks. Um, the question is did the bye help him at all? Um, going to assume Flacco starts this game. Colts probably will win it, though it's again a divisional game. Those are crazy. It's in Nashville as well. Titans are actually favored in this game by 2.5, crazily enough. Um, so if the Titans do get this win, that would be huge for them in terms of confidence that they're actually, building up wins, stacking wins against a better Colts side than they faced in the Dolphins, who they just kind of eventually just ran away from and hid because the Dolphins were that injured. Um, yeah, this could be a weird injury bowl game, and I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a 17-13 game at the end. So yeah, I would think the Colts should win this game. It's going to be hard without Michael Pittman, but I would think they should. Even if the Titans have a pretty good defense, the Titans do have a pretty good defense. I don't know if Jeff Simmons is going to be, Jeff Simmons is going to be on the field for this one. If he is, that would be huge. They need that kind of pass rusher. Jamal Adams, I don't know if he's going to be there too. Yeah, this is going to be interesting for sure. It could be one of the low key hate watches that you just watch for sicko purposes. Just say, oh, this could be a fun game in terms of if you like defense and low scoring games. Chargers Broncos is a game that is happening. Quickly go over this one. Chargers had a bye last week. Broncos are coming off a hot streak right now. They have won 3 straight after beating the crap out of the Bucks, and then getting barely scraping over the line against the Jets, and then pounding the Raiders into the sand, and breaking a 9-game losing streak to the Raiders last week. So yeah, this could be an interesting game. Chargers are hoping to get healthier. Um, they're hoping Herbert's probably healthier. They get the 2 O linemen they didn't have against the Chiefs back as well, Joe Alt and I can't remember the name of the other one, but they had 2 O linemen out against the Chiefs when they last played and lost. And they gave up 3 sacks to Chris Jones. But yeah, the Broncos are on a hot streak. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Bo Nix is starting to look decent. He's got 866 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. But of course, the defense is the main attraction for the Bucks. And the Chargers are hoping to get the run game going. If the Chargers can't get any offense going, I could easily see this being low scoring. Broncos maybe pulling off the win. It is in Denver, so um, yeah, this could be a pretty interesting divisional game. This has a lot of implications in terms of the divisional race and wild card. I think as well. Obviously, it's early doors, so we don't know exactly, but it could be huge for both these teams. Because if the Broncos start getting hot, they could be an interesting in the mix team for the playoffs. Steelers Raiders. Steelers have fallen off a little bit. They've lost two in a row, I think. The Raiders just got that shellacking by the Broncos. Um, yeah, the Steelers are trying to desperately maintain first place in the division. Um, Justin Fields is still the starter. I think he's got 5 touchdowns to a pick, so he has been taking care of the ball pretty well. He has a 48 QBR though. That is woof. Um, yeah, he takes care of the ball well, but yeah, he makes a lot of plays with his feet. I think is what that story says, and um, it's in Vegas. Um, but I I I could see the Steelers winning this. They have a really good defense still. That is always a trademark of the Steelers. And this is a Raiders team that is searching for a lot of answers. Brock Bowers, the rookie out of Georgia, is their leading target receiver, 28 catches, 313 yards, and a touchdown. Zamir White has been hurt. That has not helped their cause. They are also dealing with all the Devontae Adams garbage going on. The trade talks, he has, of course, requested a trade, and he is not going to be playing this game. That was officially announced that he will not be playing in this game. That hurts their chances a lot. I do not like their chances against a good defense in Pittsburgh, who has TJ Watt, especially, and I could trust the Steelers to inch more points. This could be an ugly game that the Steelers just get a 10-9 win out of, you know? Um, yeah, it's going to be an ugly game, but I do think the Steelers could pull it off and keep themselves at the top of the division. We go from an ugly type game to Lions Cowboys. This could be a fun game. The Lions had a bye last week. Um, they were hoping to use that get healthy in a lot of positions. Defensively and offensive line, I think Ragnow is hoping to come back this week. Their center, their all pro center, one of the best centers in the game. He's hoping to come back. Um, Cowboys, I don't know if they're going to have Micah Parsons. He did not play the last game. Um, he might not play this week. That would be huge for Dallas. The defense is not great for Dallas. It's weird to say because that is usually their strong suit. Um, the defense for Detroit is okay. It's good. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, and that's all they need because their offense can score points when they need to. They can run the ball well. Jameer Gibbs is their leading rusher at 285 yards, 3 touchdowns on 54 carries. Uh, Goff has not been perfect. He's kind of his stats would tell you he's mid with a 44.8 QBR, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. He is not exactly been brilliant in terms of that, but he's got a 71% completion rate. That is pretty good. That means he takes care of the ball fairly well. It's just he hasn't been Jared Goff standards this year, you know? Um, like a lot of good quarterbacks this year. Uh, um, yeah, and Jameson Williams has really come on with 13 catches, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's talk that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb are not getting along well. This could be a fun game. I could see, this being a somewhat good offense, a couple of decent offenses. The Lions, I think, are the much better offense on paper, and they've shown it, I think, this year. But I could see this being an interesting, tight game um, that the Lions should win. Um, yeah, Dak hasn't played bad either, to be honest. He's got 1,424 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks, with a 56.8 QBR and 65.4 completion percentage. That's not awful. QBR isn't, you know, uh, I'm starting to think QBR is a somewhat misleading stat, but, it is a stat that we look at a lot in terms of evaluating quarterbacks. Um, but yeah, I think this is a game the Lions should win. They are 3-1, and I think they're the much better team coming into this one. But you never know. In this league, any given Sunday is the motto of the NFL, and yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this one. It's obviously Fox's game of the week, because it's the Cowboys. But yeah, Falcons Panthers. Falcons should win this one quite easily. The Panthers are not good. They are 1-4. They got shellacked by the Bears. Falcons came off that great win against the Bucks. Falcons should win this one easily. Kirk Cousins had a 500-yard passing game last week. Um, he's got 1373 passing yards with 8 touchdowns, 5 picks. Andy Dalton has not been bad for the Panthers. You have to give him credit for that. He's got 5 touchdowns and 2 picks, 675 yards in 3 games. That's not bad. But he's coming up against a pretty good Falcons secondary, and yeah, these divisional games can be weird. It's in Charlotte, but I don't expect the Falcons to have much resistance, and they should win it. Bengals Giants is a game that could define 2 seasons quite quickly. Um, if the Bengals coming into this are 1-4, they lost the heartbreaker to Baltimore in on Sunday, and the Giants won that crazy game against the Seahawks. Um, the Bengals should win this. They have the better talent on offense, and on both sides of the ball. Let's be honest. But on offense, they have a quarterback putting up MVP numbers with 12 touchdowns, 2 picks, only 2 picks, 1,370 yards passing, a 73.6 QBR, 72.3 completion percentage. That's MVP numbers, and their team is 1-4 because the Bengals decided to not have a defense this year. Um, Meanwhile, the Giants have Daniel Jones, who's not been awful, without, at least statistically speaking. On paper, he's got 1,138 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 3 picks, a QBR of 61.3. That's kind of surprising. He's got a 64% completion percentage. Um, yeah, I don't know if they're going to have Malik Neighbors this game. I think he's hurt with I think it's a thumb or something like that. I don't think he played last game against the Seahawks. Obviously, that kind of impacted them, but not a lot. They might not have Devin Singletary for this game. We did learn that Kayvon Thibodeau for the Giants is their best pass rusher. He's going to be out he had surgery on his wrist, I believe it was. So he's on IR. The Bengals did put one of their corners, Dax Hill, on IR as well. So that's a big loss for them in the secondary as they go up against Wandale Robinson and maybe Malik Neighbors. So I could see this being a somewhat actually competitive game. It shouldn't be because the Bengals are better on both sides of the ball, as I said. But um, anything can happen, and I could see the Giants maybe pulling it out if it goes perfectly to their script. If the Bengals lose this game, there's already calls for Zach Taylor's head. Um, those would only get louder and more insistent. They are favored by 3.5 at the Giants. So if that tells you anything, um, so yeah, this is a huge game because if the Bengals lose, they are 1-5. Their season is almost over. It's on life support because then they would need a 2015 Chiefs type run where they go on an 11 game winning streak at least to make the playoffs. Um, I mean they could. This is a team that absolutely could do that, but I can't see it unless the defense drastically improves. Um, yeah. So this could be a very weird game, a game that could be weirdly competitive. And if the Giants lose this, you know, it keeps them at the bottom of the division. Shocking news, I know. They haven't exactly been great the last year and a half. Um, Daniel Jones is not the guy, even though statistically, actually, he's not been awful this year. Um, but if they win this, that could be huge. I mean, the Commanders are at the top of the division with a 4-1 record, and yeah, anything's possible, I guess. Yeah, the Bengals should win this. If they don't, I wouldn't be shocked either. But Yeah, that would be a kind of a monumental season-defining loss for the Bengals, and might be season-defining for the Giants because it could put them right back in the playoffs. Let's see. I believe in the playoff standings. If the playoffs were to end today, the Giants would be they're a game back at the Cowboys actually, who are 3-2 right now. The Giants are 2-3. So a win and a Cowboy loss, if what I'm thinking is correct, with the Lions win, that could be huge in terms of getting back in the division, getting back in the wild card race for the Giants. So there's a lot riding on this game for both teams, even if it's early doors. So that's something to keep an eye on if you are interested in that kind of stuff. The last game is Bills Jets. I think I covered it the last podcast. The Jets fired Saleh. And I think I mentioned that if the Jets win, they get first place in the division. That's how weird this is. Bills are coming off the heartbreaking loss to the Texans, where they clawed back into the game, but lost anyway because McDermott decided to pass 3 times. And the Jets, they're in turmoil. Aaron Rodgers has come out saying he wants people to stop saying that he's behind all this stuff. There's talks that Saleh was going to demote Hackett, who is uh, Aaron Rodgers' favorite coordinator of all time for some reason. Um, and he insisted on bringing him to New York. Um, there's talks that there's talks about a lot of stuff around the Jets. It's a lot of speculation. Aaron obviously wants this to go away. I still don't know if he's behind it. He might not be. The owners come out and said Aaron was not. Aaron has said he wasn't. We probably will never know truly, and I don't think anyone believes Aaron Rodgers fully. But only time will tell, I guess. This is a game that is again like the Bengals Giants game, huge for both teams. Season it could be season defining. If the Bills lose this, there might be time to raise some questions. Interesting stat: Josh Allen has not thrown a pick this year. Kudos to him. He's done great on that. Taking care of the ball well. Thrown for 945 yards, 8 touchdowns, 77.6 QBR. That's great. 60.3 completion percentage. Not bad at all. Meanwhile, you look at Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets' offense has looked flat. Um, he's got 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, 49.1 QBR, with a 61% completion percentage. That's not great. I don't know if the Bills might not have Shakir or Cook back. That could be huge. Because Shakir is their top receiver at 230 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they do have Keon Coleman, who showed up last week, made some good plays, made some bad plays, but he's a rookie. That's to be expected. Um, I don't know if Curtis Samuel is going to be available, but this could be a game that defines the seasons for both teams. If the Jets win this and go into first place after losing their coach, I don't think the Bills are going to hear the end of it. It is in New York, New Jersey, I should say. Pardon me. The Bills are 2.5 point favorites in this one. The Bills should win this. They have the better talent across the board. The Jets defense has gotten better. Let's be honest. It has not been what it was the first couple of games. It's gotten better. I don't know if Sauce Gardner is going to be available. If he is, that could be huge for them. It's a question of the Jets' offense is going to get up and running. Because if they can keep up with Buffalo, they have a chance because the defense is improved. It's not great, but it's improved. And we've seen that the Bills can be scored on. As much as the first 3 weeks kind of told us they couldn't be. Um, so we're starting to find these teams out. We won't know the true identities of these teams till Thanksgiving almost probably. Um, but yeah, this could be a huge game, and it could be a grinded out game. I could see it easily being a 20-17 game. I could also see it being a weirdly 30-26 game. Um, Yeah, the Jets won this game last year, actually. It was the game that Rodgers snapped his Achilles on the eighth play. Um, yeah, it's a divisional game. It's gonna be weird. Um, but I would think the Bills. I would expect the Bills to win this. And yeah, that is your grid side preview of the Week 6 action. Thank you so much for stopping by. Give us a follow and a like on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Give us on YouTube. We are there. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Um, yeah, any likes, follows, shares, follows are greatly appreciated. I appreciate each and every one of you that is giving this a listen, and I hope you have a brilliant rest of your day or night or whenever you are listening to this. Uh, so long.